Hello and welcome. Thanks so much for joining me today for Kineo Totara office hours. Today we are going to talk about a topic that comes up quite a lot. People typically ask the question, can we have one file in one place and then update it in multiple places? There is a feature inside of the system called Alias files. Alias files is a feature that is core to Moodle, so it is part of Totara itself. Today we're going to talk about kind of how that works and what you can do to implement Alias files in your solution. My name is Taylor Craig. I'm the platforms consultant here at Kineo. So what I have the privilege of doing is training existing clients, working with our sales team for potential clients, and really just kind of getting you comfortable with the solution that we line out for you. So a little bit about what alias files are. Alias files are basically creating a shortcut back to an original file that is living somewhere else. Today I'm going to show you two different ways to utilize alias files. We're going to do one, which is going to probably be our typical recommendation for how you would use it, and it's going to be linking to actually a server. And I have Calvin, our support one of our support guys. He is on standby and waiting for me to ask him to update the file. So we'll do it that way. And then we will also do it by using the My Private Files feature inside of Totara itself. So we'll take a look at two different ways. All right, let me get into our course. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do, first, let me make sure Calvin's ready. Make sure he's available and ready. He should be. He said he would be, but let's double check. All right, so he's there. He's ready. So what we have here, we have an alias test file. I've got it inside of my course. Now, what Calvin has done is he has loaded these up to a server, so an FTP site. I personally don't have access to it, and in this particular case, you may or may not have access to it. It would just kind of depend on how we would do that setup. Some clients do have access to their FTP server, some don't. Some prefer it that way. So that is what we are going to show you here. So he's loaded these files up onto the system. So right now we have this alias test file, and when I click on it, I see the Kineo logo. That's what I get. All right, so I am going to ask him to change it. So I'm asking him now. So he's going to change it. Now we're not going to see this happen necessarily in real time. I have some things I want to show you and kind of explain to you. So here is what we see now. Once he switches it, what we should see is this. He's going to switch it and throw this file in. Okay, so it's going to be a pretty big difference. Whoops, and I just canceled out of my site. Go me. Just waiting on him to do the replacement. Okay, looks like he's done it. So what I need to do at this point in time, now typically what you would do is you would give it about 24 hours because there is a chronological script that runs in the background. You've probably heard me talk about cron jobs multiple times before. There is a chronological script that runs in the background that goes through and it finds all those files that you've updated and it replaces them. So basically, he's done that. We're going to kind of fake it out. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to edit my settings. I'm not going to change the file, but I am going to click an update button. So right here, you'll see I have an update button. So I'm going to update, save and return. Now when I click it, there we go. So we see the difference. Now, one thing to note about this, and I'm going to inspect this. So I want to show you something. Maybe kind of hard to see. Let me zoom in a little. make this bigger. So when I right-click Inspect Element on this PDF file, there's going to be some things I want to point out. You'll notice here that it's telling me in the code that it was last modified on the 19th of October at 1800 Greenwich Mean Time, that it's going to expire Friday, October 20th at 7:14 GMT. So basically, once that 7:14 hits, it should go ahead and update on its own. But because we went ahead and clicked that update button, it went ahead and updated. So basically, typically what we would recommend when you're utilizing alias files in this manner is that you go ahead, you update all the files that you want to update. They have to have the same exact name inside of the folder. So basically you would pass a new folder with the new files all named the same to our support team. They would load those into the FTP, or you would load them into your FTP, allow those files to replace, so replace the old ones with the new ones, and then give it about 24 hours. We like for you to go ahead and let this cron script do that for you instead of you going in and individually clicking update, for two reasons. First of all, don't do work you shouldn't have to do. Let the system work for you. And second of all, the cron script won't miss anything, whereas human error, you possibly could, right? So typically that's what we recommend and what we would prefer you do. Okay, so that is going to be one way to make this work. Let's take a look at how this works within your private files. So you may or may not be aware that in your system, users have the ability to utilize what we call private files. You can turn this functionality off. There is an administrative setting surrounding that, as well as, I believe, some permissions in the roles. So if you don't want them using the My Private Files area and you only want your admins using it or whatever, you can go in and dig through the permissions. I'm pretty certain there is a permission for that. So the way you access it is you go to your profile. So you're going to click on My Profile, and underneath Administration, you'll see here there's a link for Manage Private Files. Now again, keep in mind I'm using a version 9 instance. You may be using a older instance, or maybe a point release ahead of me, but probably either where I'm at or behind. So you'll notice here I have a few different files in here. And you'll notice that this one has looks like a chain link on it. So if I click that, what that's showing me is that this file is being utilized elsewhere. So it has an alias, or it has a shortcut. So it says there are one alias shortcut files that use this file as its source. Okay, so that's how you know if a file is being utilized elsewhere. Now, what we're going to do, let me show you how you might add a file from your private files into a course. So I've loaded these files in. I am going to go into a different course. I'm going to go into this course here. We're going to add an activity or resource. Go down, select File, and Add. And then we're going to select a file. You'll see here, over here, these are what we call our repositories. So basically what you would do, these are the files that Calvin loaded for me. So he created me an additional repository on my site where I could grab those files from the server. So they're loaded on the server, and then I can pull them into my site. So this is what he did. Then you also have your private files repository. I'm going to grab this sample Word doc. This is where you have the option to either make a copy of the file or make an alias. So if you make a copy of the file, it's going to do exactly that. It's going to copy it, and it will not update if you utilize the copy. If you create an alias or a shortcut to the file, then what that's going to do is it's going to link back to the file that's housed in your My Files area. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to select the file. You'll notice here that it gives it the little shortcut icon. You've probably seen this on your desktop before. And I'm going to save and return to the course. And let's take a look at what the file looks like so we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is the file we have in place here, replacement sample file 2. So that's the one we're using. And I'm going to replace it in my files. And then we're going to come back and check and see if it updated it. So here's the file I want to update it with. You'll see that the file is different. I have no highlighting, my header is different. Okay, so this is what we're going to replace it with. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my profile. I am going to go to Manage My Private Files. I'm going to grab here. So here's the replacement file. You'll notice that it is named the same. So I'm going to drag, drop. It's going to ask me, what do you want to do with this file? Do you want to overwrite it or do you want to rename it? If I rename it, it's just going to create a copy, basically. I'm going to have two files named essentially the same, but it's going to tag a 1 to the end of it, append an additional 1. I want to overwrite it because I actually want to replace the file. So I've replaced it, and I'm going to save my changes. Now we're going to go back to that course, and we're going to click on Example from My Private Files, open this file up, and there we go. So it has changed the file for me. And that's essentially what was happening on the server side when Calvin was replacing files for me. If you're doing it by yourself and you're only going to be replacing a few files here and there, and you're doing it from an administrative point of view, you can use the My Private Files area. If you're wanting to do this on a much larger scale and you're wanting to update a whole bunch of documents at one time, I might suggest going ahead having us set up a SFTP, so a secure FTP portal, where you can drop those files. And at that point, again, there is a cron script that runs that updates that. Give it 24 hours and you should see your brand new files all in place. So I hope that you found this helpful. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the floor back over to you. Thanks so much for joining me today, and let me know if you have any questions. And I'm looking at our Q&A box here. If you have any questions, just let me know. All right. If there are no questions, thanks again for joining me. We will be meeting back here, let's see here, November 2nd. Wow, we're already getting into November pretty quickly. And in November, we are going to start talking about a new really cool feature that I found that I think is a recent point release for quiz and how you can update quiz questions. So join me back here next time, and we will talk about that. Thanks, guys. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Bye.